From I Am Interchange, it's the Hatch Podcast series. Washington, D.C. isn't just a backdrop of monuments and marble. It's a living, breathing city, home to more than 700,000 people who work, who raise kids, who build their lives here. Known for decades as Chocolate City, D.C. carries a proud history of black and brown culture and resilience. And yet, unlike every other city in the United States, its residents watch democracy without fully taking part in it. They pay billions in federal taxes, they serve in the military, and still, they live under taxation without representation. The very injustice that fueled the Boston Tea Party and launched the American Revolution. More than 2 centuries later, the capital of the United States remains the only city where that founding demand is still denied. And here's the twist. This federal district is saturated with law enforcement. Dozens of agencies with arresting authority overlap in the same small space. The Metropolitan Police, Capitol Police, Secret Service, Park Police, Transit Police, and more recently, the National Guard and ICE. A city layered with power, yet stripped of the most basic power its people should hold, the right to representation in Congress. This is Dispatch from the Heartland. I'm your host, Tate Chamberlain, and in this episode, Ty Hobson Powell brings urgency and fire to the fight for DC statehood, making the case to Corbett Landis and Tammy Buckner that it's time for the capital to finally become the 51st state. This isn't just politics, it's about identity, equality, and the unfinished promise of democracy in the United States. We're at Arbor Day Farms in Nebraska. Join us, won't you? Tammy and Corbett, Ty hasn't talked about it yet, but one of his other projects is about DC statehood, and I'm curious, before he gets into it, what you know about it.
I know absolutely very little, except for the fact that it's a really bad idea if you're a conservative, if you're sitting on the Republican side of things and you're really excited about the fact that we, really like to not give rights to places like Guam or Puerto Rico. So we like to divide our country in half and pretend like we're Democrats and Republicans. And you start to add odd numbers and it's kind of like a jury trial in which all of a sudden you can't fix it. So from the perspective that I have, it's kind of interesting because I live in Richmond. I have an office in D.C. and it's a very different experience between Richmond and D.C. Mm-hmm. You're got all these fancy cars and then you got less fancy cars and all of a sudden like everybody getting off the public transportation has zero representation to the entire audience that came in the fancy cars up into DC and all of a sudden you step into DC and you are a minority. On the highway, you are not a minority. It's a whole bunch of white people looking at each other. Fuck you! You just cut me off. And you show up, and it's all of a sudden, we're all walking together, and all of a sudden, I'm a minority. There's black people that live here. The whole drive up here, it looked like I thought I was It's weird. Yeah, it's absolutely weird, especially because everybody treats themselves like assholes, and then all of a sudden we show up, and people get off the subway, and I probably shouldn't swear at people or flip them off or. Yeah,
Corbett was like the greatest addition to this thing.
That was good.
Might have been a little too honest.
That was good. That was good. I mean, I know it's used to be like the racially segregated, probably one of the biggest in the United States, but now I think it's it's more so the dominant. It's dominated, African American. I know there's been a lot of changes, which is obviously, needed. So, yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to see how we can assist and how our voices can make a difference in this movement.
Well, before we get into it, thank you. Yeah, Ty's been passionate about this for a while. So I thought it would be good to get kind of two outsiders of... not that you're an outsider of DC.
I'm an outsider.
Yeah.
I don't represent the population of DC.
Since Ty
probably don't.
I grew up in Kansas,
but it's okay. I get it.
Just some people born in the 20s. Like I had no idea what the hell was going on.
And hanging out with your grandmother when you were 7.
We were poaching. I had no idea.
This is gonna be good.
So one of Ty's project is turning DC into the 51st state, and
that's dope.
And I'm hoping that you'll all kind of help me interview him about it, and I want him to convince us of it.
You realize this is a slippery slope because now you're going to have to give rights to Puerto Ricans and Guam.
Yeah. So there's a whole conversation to be had. Yeah.
That's dope.
We're going to have it, man.
They're going to have to stop paying taxes. Nothing in return. They're going to be able to vote.
You got to convince me. Ready for this conversation.
So I'll start out with like a short little intro statement, and then we'll just sort of guide it there.
Let's do it.
So when we think about America, and we think about like foundationally why America is America, it's built on this concept that like taxation without representation was fucked, right? Like the idea that you could be taxed for a system that you can't have buy-in to, it just feels wrong. It's the reason why the Boston Tea Party was what it was, right? Because at the end of the day, what nobody wants to do is to make an investment in a system or systems of governance that they feel like do not invest back in them.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's almost a special quality of irony to what DC statehood is in the fact that we are the only capital city in an advanced nation that excludes the citizens from the overall systems of governance. The only one. I mean, when we talk about Washington, D.C., we talk about 714,000 tax-paying Americans that serve on juries, Americans that have dedicated their lives to service in the armed forces, have gone off and have been represented in every major war in American history, who have made great contributions to what the social fabric of America is. But when it comes time to make decisions, to have a seat at the table, to have a voice on the issues, we don't have that. Now, just as an outsider, I mean, it's easy to overlook DC because there's not a deep relation to DC. I mean, a lot of people just go to DC for the National Monument, the mall, they go to Smithsonian and the Capitol, and they do the cute shit. But there is a thriving city. And to Corbett's point, a thriving city that is majority black. Washington, D.C., although it shrunk from its historical highs of around 75% black, when it was referred to affectionately as a chocolate city, it is still 46% black, making that the majority breakdown of the demographic. If D.C. was a 51st state, it would be the only majority black state in the entire United States. The only majority minority plurality in the entire United States. We have a majority minority legislature, a minority executive, and our mayor, who is a black woman, serving now on her 3rd term. I mean, like, when we talk about what DC has to offer in being a state, we're self-sufficient. We can sustain our own affairs. But we also have a vision for what our own future should look like. And that's meddled with constantly. Like, DC's lack of statehood is not just like a political thing that like Democrats and Republicans just pass back and forth between the aisle. Like, this shit has real life implications. Like, you look at, we wanted to do a needle exchange in the 90s. We didn't do it. Not because we didn't have the political will to, we did, decidedly in DC, but Congress blocked it. And because we weren't a state, we don't have any power to overturn that. And as a result, we saw so many deaths in the black and brown communities. Right? Washington, D.C. has some of the most robust gun violence prevention laws on the books. But due to lax laws of neighboring states and our inability to have a seat at the table to speak to things like red flag laws, like background checks, we just watch as our city is under siege to weapons that come in from states that neighbor us, that don't support us. Right now, we're at 214 plus homicides on the year, right? When we look at health access, when we look at marijuana, let's get trivial. Over 70% of Washington, D.C. decided that we want to legalize marijuana. only for a lawmaker from Maryland to add a provision to the bill making it illegal for DC to have the tax system to support it. Which is why when you go to DC, you can't buy weed. You have to buy stickers, and then they'll give you weed with the stickers. So you buy a $35 sticker and you'll get an eighth. Like stupid shit like that, right? That is the sort of gray areas that we have to live in as a result of not having autonomy. But it's a national security issue even. Because January 6th happened because we had to ask for permission to protect ourselves. That we had to call into the Department of Defense to ask if we could send Metropolitan Police Department to go and support a fixed physical location that was in the footprint of Washington, D.C. I mean, the reason why Donald Trump had the photo up with the upside down Bible is because our lack of autonomy allowed for National Guard to be deployed without the consent of our public leaders, our elected officials. And so there is a special color of inherent racism on it in the fact that everything that is done wrong about DC not being a state inherently affects black and brown people in a negative way and disproportionately higher. Not only that, but I can't help but pay attention to the fact that as DC's racial composition is changing and that 46% is dwindling, that the conversation about DC statehood is getting louder and stronger. More ferocity. Because people that come from the Utah, from the New Hampshire, from states that are used to having agency coming in from Virginia, they say, fuck this. This is 2023. We already went through 1776. Like I'm buying into an America that is fully baked. And that's taxation with representation, not without it. We already went through that. Mm-hmm. And so, like I said, to have this be the capital and to not embody the democratic values that we just as soon go off and try to intervene with in foreign nations, it's crazy. Like to make democratic innovations halfway across the world when we don't live up to by the people, for the people in Washington, D.C., right there. Like to be around, to be situated around power you can't participate in. Mm-hmm. It's frustrating. Especially when I know, like, at the end of the day, like, the IRS is for sure taking federal taxes. I guess if we had, that. And then to your point, and then I'm going to toss this so we can have a conversation. You said we had to think about Guam, right? And Puerto Rico. I think we do. I think we have to be intellectually honest about the colonial legacy that even gave us places like Guam and Puerto Rico and Hawaii. And we have to have a honest moment of really giving that power back to the people, allowing for a referendum that allows them to determine their political future. And whatever that yields, it yields. But I think that we're at a point in time now where it's okay to be intellectually honest about where we have been so that we can have a clearer future. So that's DC statehood, y'all. Let's argue.
As your counterpoint, the first thing I would like to argue is that 47%. Yeah, that's 9 to 5. Everybody leaves the city. It does not feel like 47% African American. Qualitatively, let's shoot it closer to 85%.
That's what it feels like for you.
No, with the absolute, what it feels like for all of us. Come on. People come into DC to work. Maybe they send their kids to school in DC. I don't know how they get, the zip codes. Their kid goes to public school there, but come on.
Wow.
We've all been there. At 5 o'clock, it is a very different demographic.
Are you scared when you go through there? You get scared when you go?
Who's there after 5? Who's there after 5?
Right.
After 5? No, I'm just saying that there's a mass exodus from DC at the end of the workday.
Of who?
Of the people that represent the government, which are,
got it. So
I hate to say, are not representative of the population that he described up to this point.
Got it. So you're saying that the people who govern DC leave after 5, but there's still a population there.
Yeah, the people
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, the people that actually inhabit that area. Yeah.
So that's
what would you say? An Uber driver comes in, he works absolutely all day, but he can't afford to be in DC. He can't afford to live in DC. He came in from overseas, but he spends the vast majority of his working day over in DC. We're talking about a massive representation of the population of DC. The governors leave.
So after 5 o'clock,
But the people that can't afford to live in DC, we're talking about a geographic that is so expensive to live in that the people that work inside of it can't afford to live inside of it. Look at public housing. Bill Clinton.
You agree with that?
Yeah, there's definitely even people who work on the Hill. There was actually a young lawmaker, Maxwell Frost, who talked about even with his salary as a congressman, like finding units that were affordable in DC was a complexity. And I mean, to his point, like a lot of people who come through DC are definitely just sort of like here right now, gone a little later, which is why DC needs to be a state, because other states like Virginia can tax that traffic. They can establish tolls under their own authority and be able to generate funds towards things that reflect their local value. Things like in improving schools, things like improving equitable access to healthcare east of the river and southeast where the majority of African-American residents reside. Right. Things that we know we care about. Violence intervention. Like those things. But we can't tax the people who come in and take the benefits
and then leave.
Right. We can't tax those folks because we're not a state. And that's a disservice to Washingtonians who can't afford to live in DC. Like our affordable housing infrastructure is piss poor. Yeah. You know, and I got to give it back to Corbett, but man, like that just, it hit something to me.
Bill Clinton. Do you remember when he was president?
I do.
You were pretty young.
I was.
Yeah, you were really young. You know, there was a law that was passed when he was president that limited the number of housing units. And it hasn't been changed. HUD, they pay more for certain geographical regions based on the cost of rent in those areas, but they aren't legally able to increase the number of units.
That's crazy.
Since Bill Clinton was president. Now, HUD's not at fault, but our representatives, senators, president, all of that, they are, the governing body is at fault. How old were you when Bill Clinton was president? You were young. You were young.
Single digit ages, for sure.
To think that the number of housing units that HUD is allowed to pay for has not changed.
In almost 3 decades.
The amount that they can pay for those housing units has changed. But how many more people live in DC now? They pay more for those units because it costs a lot to live in DC. Yeah. But they have not increased the number of units.
So you're saying there's not a number of affordable housing?
Yeah, like that service number hasn't increased. Like they've made a cost of living adjustment to adjust for the rents and the inflation that happens year by year. But what they haven't done is increase the volume, expand the availability, despite knowing that there's an expansive population. And DC is one of those fast growing cities. And it is one of those cities that has the funds and the ability to create that supportive infrastructure the same way that we have Clark Development, which is one of the biggest development companies there. Douglas Development slap up a condo in every single small nook and cranny is the same way that we could choose to put affordable housing. You know, there's a reverend in DC. His name is Delonte Golston, and he says a budget is a moral document because it outlines the priorities of, you know, any just society. It quantifies what we care about. And DC time and time again has tried to use its budget to pilot innovative programs, things that will change the world and change outcomes for residents. But because we're not a state, they're just not allowed to sustain. Like, even I'm looking back at marijuana, like we came to a conclusion back in 2014. We said, man, fuck the idea that somebody could go to jail in this 21st century around weed. This is stupid. It makes no sense. And we're beyond the criminalization of that, only to have somebody make it so that it is still technically illegal. And who bears the brunt of those consequences of its enforcement? Black and brown people in a city that is majority black and brown. While the transitory white folks that get to come in and work from wherever, they smoke their J in comfort and go home. It's fucking insane. And what is not articulated is that DC is a police state. We have over 34 different unique police forces with arresting authority in Washington, D.C. because we have a lot of federal agencies there, and they all have their own police forces with post 9/11 different deputizations that can be activated for various reasons around national security, which, go figure, you can use national security a lot in the federal district. So I mean, shit, there's a lot of leeway with that, right? Oh yeah, Homeland Security, Public Housing Authority Police, Metro Police, Park Police, Secret Service Police. Fuck, the museum have police. Every major university in Washington, D.C. has a police force. Like, it's crazy. We live in a police state. And to live in those conditions where we're over-policed, where we're under-resourced, and where we aren't given the keys to access the doors to democracy that we're standing right outside of. Like, literally, the Capitol is right there. Like, all of these sort of, like, institutions that are supposed to be representative of, like, democracy and inclusion, they sit right in the middle of this thing that has no access to it.
Right.
It is puzzling. And, like, to your point of asking what's my relation to being American earlier, it's often drawn into question. I'm like, what the fuck is this? It feels very cheap. Like, I feel like I got the cheap seats to being an American.
You do.
Like, I'm watching it on the big screen, but it's right there.
Yeah.
Like, it's right there. But I have to watch it on the big screen, and it's for what?
Mm-hmm.
I should have that same access everybody else does.
I said both of this to you earlier, but everybody walks up to me and they say, oh, holy shit, you're a one-legged veteran. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your service. As though, you know, fighting wars overseas in some way differentiates us from the situations that we have at home. Both of you are serving in the capacity in which we have a home we want to come home to.
Mm-hmm.
And in terms of service, that is a service that really matters.
Yeah.
And I did want to apologize for one thing that I might have not said the way I meant to. When I asked you what your age was, the reason for that wasn't to say anything other than the fact that for the vast majority of your formative years, in which has created the activist in which you are, the city in which you were advocating for hasn't been able to increase the number of seats in which housing authorities can provide for the community that you represent.
I have a question, Ty, in regards to the topic. Like, what have been some of the huge challenges, especially historical challenges, to making DC the 51st?
So I think really it's just all the black people. It's all the black people. It's empowering another state that's just black as shit and like authentically black and how it shows up. Like we had a mayor, Marion Barry, like blackity black, like authentically black. Like out of that SNCC legacy of blackness, like black. So like when we talk about what Washington D.C. has been, it has represented like a seat of black power. I mean, immediately outside of D.C. is Prince George's County, which represents the highest concentration of black wealth in America as a result of economic opportunities that were generated out of the Marion Barry administration and things that were going on in D.C. during the 80s, right? So I would say the biggest historical hurdle is like the blackness, you know, for people who are constitutional purists, they would say, well, technically our founding fathers like anticipated a federal district that was independent of any state so as to be situated outside of the affairs of state so that like you having the State Department there wouldn't be like, okay, Virginia can just depot the State Department, right? Like, there's some practicality to it.
Right.
And so to that thing, I have two rebuttals. My one rebuttal is, with all due respect, fuck what that vision was, because like that same vision relegated women to second-class citizenship, and I would have been a slave. I wouldn't even have been able to be here and be in this podcast. So if we really had to track that whole vision the whole way through, if we're really looking at that as like an absolute truth, then there's a whole lot of shit that wouldn't be happening. Right. So we have to be honest about that. Yeah. The second thing also that I would say, though, is at the end of the day, it just doesn't make sense. Like, DC deserves to be included. Yeah. Like we offer so much, and like you heard my story about like graduating high school at 13. Yeah. I'm one of many. I am one of many stories like waiting to be told. Leaders waiting to leave. I'm sure I don't necessarily know that I would like to be a senator or a congressman.
You should be.
You're right.
You got my vote. You got my vote.
Look.
I mean, how else are you going to convince not only the people that's here?
It's
I
like
think you'd be a much
like,
better president than senator. I'm just throwing it out there.
You got to take steps.
With all the dysfunction that lives in that space. It's kind of hard to imagine that I would do it. But even to the point of I am the only me, but not the only person like me. Washington D.C. has a whole roster full of people that I'm sure will be able to take that spot. Who like I would love to support.
If not you, then
if not, like at the end of the day, because like this thing is not about me.
Yeah,
it's about doing what's sensible.
That's right.
And I support like what's best for DC, and I just want to see that. So, like I said, I don't necessarily know that I have the patience for it, but I know that there's a whole generation of leaders that would love to lead.
Yeah, I get it,
and would love to be on the House floor, the Senate floor. We just don't even have that opportunity.
Right.
So, I'm saddened by our exclusion. I'm hopeful.
What do you think is what it's going to take? What do you think?
We got to continue to humanize the story because a lot of people don't even know about the plight of DC. Because
or
DC
gerrymandering.
Yep, it's one of those sort of mystified concepts where if you don't have any touch points with it, then like why would you give a fuck about DC statehood? Like why would you know about it in?
Well, right. Why would
Nebraska?
You know about this?
Why would you know about it in Nebraska?
I served overseas. Iraq. We had people in Afghanistan. We had people in Syria that were in the Puerto Rican National Guard. They died. They lived. They served. They led. They represented the American values, yet they never actually were able to vote for a president, senator, or nothing. Mm. Now, I'm not saying that we should refocus this towards, the American colonies, the recolonization of the United States or the world, whatever. But what I'm saying is that people sacrifice every single day. They pay taxes, yet they've never had a representation and vote. They've died. They've lived. They've spent their entire lives identifying as Americans, yet without the ability to actually represent themselves in the democratic process that we describe as the core value that makes us who we are. It's why we're talking about whether or not we should defend Ukraine. Yes. But we should also defend DC, maybe Guam. Let's throw some Puerto Rico in there.
But if I'm in Missouri, how would I know about this? How would I know that you are trying to make DC the 51st state? I mean, how would I?
So what we did during the last election cycle, and it's so crazy because right now, like DC statehood is such a politicized thing. Like Republicans, and to your point of what you said, anybody right of the aisle, they hate it because DC is decidedly liberal.
Mm-hmm. What demographically? Like, how does that vote out?
So basically, I think kind of like what it is it's definitely somewhat the demographic for sure, but I would say also just there is like in the same way that we're coming out to the heartland, right? And the expressive sort of social culture is like a more conservative, buttoned up. I'll meet you here. Even at the happy hour, I'm still a little buttoned up. Maybe I'll undo the top button, but I still got my shirt on. Mm-hmm, like I'm still like it's. I think there's just a prescribed value of liberalism that kind of lives in the northeast corridor of America. And historically that reflects in which states were like slave states, which states weren't. Like there's kind of like that legacy of it. And so we're right there on the Mason-Dixon line. It's kind of an extension of that like sort of liberalism that lived.
I wish it ended there. I don't think we are there.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
But to challenge you there, yes. How do you describe the differences between demographics, populations? Give me something other than like political boundaries. And I'm trying to feed you a question here and an answer maybe, but Washington, D.C., it is the governing body. And the reason which they didn't want Washington, D.C. to be able to vote is because it was a seat of government. And they were afraid of a lobby group, politicians. They were afraid of outside influence. Absolutely. But outside influence seems to be pretty pervasive at the moment.
It is.
Yeah.
So can you describe to me the difference between that pervasive nature and the rest of the United States and how maybe...
So it's because what you're touching on is something that I think is a valid consideration, especially like I said, for something that's big with constitutional purists that say, look, we do kind of want to untap sort of federal seat of power that is just like it's safe. It lives outside of the affairs of a Maryland or Virginia or whatever. What we have proposed around DC statehood actually creates a independent federal district that exists around. It's almost a unique cutout around all of this federal footprint that lives downtown. Because at the end of the day, all of what I described earlier in that typical DC field trip that everybody takes to the National Mall, that's not DC. That's not. That's the federal district, sure. That's all the cute shit that's federally funded, but that is not the heart and pulse of the city. That's not go-go music. That's not Mumbo Sauce. That's not Howard University. That's not U Street. That is not any of the robust or rich culture that DC has. And so under the bills that have been proposed for DC statehood and how to make it happen, we would have a cutout for the federal district, which would be downtown and around that footprint, around the White House, around the Capitol, around the mall, around these things. That would still be the federal district under a federal mandate. Everything that surrounds it, the Washington, D.C., the 714,000 residents that live around the president, the vice president, and the occasional ambassador that come and visit, what would happen for them is they would get a chance to have the steering wheel to drive into democracy, to really govern themselves. And it will be called the Douglas Commonwealth, to still keep D.C. as an homage to Frederick Douglass, who was a native of Washington, D.C., who was an avid abolitionist and fought for the creation of systems that allow for freedom and the breaking of systems that held people down and oppressed. And so I think that again, when people lift that as a concern, although I'm not necessarily weighing too heavily on like centuries ago fucking talking points, right? I do see a validity in having an untouched seat of power, especially when you look at like how volatile politics can get. So yeah, like a local government could definitely get like very fucking weird. And if they had all of the federal infrastructure to drive change, that would be terrible.
So basically you're telling me that we currently and futuristically will have a integrity-driven, how should I say this, a higher standard for the D.C. area than we do for our current Supreme Court.
That's the hope.
Yeah.
That's the hope. That's the hope. And you know,
so we don't want D.C. to have a voice because we hold it to a higher standard than we currently do for the ethical considerations of our own Supreme Court. Yeah,
that's what we're living in. That's the truth that we're living in. Like we holding D.C. to a higher standard than Congress. We're holding D.C. to a higher standard than like all of these like sort of things that we've empowered to do the work for us. So it's kind of weird. It's kind of weird.
A little bit.
It's like a little hater vibe.
We differentiated D.C. in its entirety because we held it to a standard.
Yep.
Even for the municipality, for everyday people walking up and down the street. And there was a higher level of standard there than the ethical considerations that we put in place for the way that we manage the United States Supreme Court.
Yep. Or Congress, which is fully constituted by old white guys. But we want to fuck with this. We want to fuck with this black city on the hill that has been progressive and leading with cutting edge innovation.
We don't want that.
All the things. It's fucked. But
what's the next steps? What's the plan? What's the goals? What are
So like what I'm
this.
So what I'm working on right now is, like I said, I think humanizing it, because really when you watch DC, it's easy to reduce DC to like scandal. Okay, like it's the backdrop of like political shit, or you know, you seen White House down, or maybe just something where DC was like a backdrop really quickly. It's oh yeah, that's the Capitol, and we have it as a cultural touch point. But people don't know about Chuck Brown.
John Brown,
you know, right? About U Street and the rich black entrepreneurship that lived there, right?
Yeah.
And the businesses that survived after MLK's assassination, and the whole backstory to that, and in a city that burned.
So bring that to light. So bring
like,
that to light.
And so that's kind of what I do when I go out. Like part of what I take with me is like that conversation.
Okay.
Of like being in the middle of Nebraska City, we talking about DC Statehood right here, right, and this is a conversation that wasn't happening until I was in this space, and I take that to Muscatine, Iowa. You know what I'm saying? I take that to all the different places and spaces that I go, because I believe that what allows, beyond thinking larger than DC Statehood, like thinking about all of these sort of things, what allows bullshit to sustain is a scourge of misinformation and ignorance that allows a few people who talk loud to project the truth that becomes the truth. So when people say DC doesn't deserve to be a state, or DC doesn't have real people, if they have a loud voice and a platform and there's not a tie that can be able to counter that and show you that my humanity matters and show you that if the doors were open that other people like me would be able to show up, then that truth that you're hearing from Mitch McConnell about why we don't need to be a state, like he quite literally directly remarked on some of the organizing work that me and a group were doing. He said that we were trying to hijack the Senate, which is kind of funny from a guy who like did everything that he could to like. I was
going to say, didn't he kind of do
hijack the Senate as in add 2 more senators that would probably be liberal,
as in just have representation.
I think he hijacked the Senate by just constantly fumbling on his own words because he's 97 years old, which is also representative of other things we should be talking about right now, is the fact that everybody that is actually going to live in the country, live in DC, live in the entirety are not representative of the population in which we're making the decisions for those people to exist. Do we need 22-year-old senators? Probably not. But those who have to look towards the future of their children, their grandchildren.
But you know, it's so crazy. You said, do we need 22-year-old senators or not? What I think, like, obviously, I think that like
You're
it all comes out.
Because I'm
listen,
blown away so far.
In that same way, though, you could find some other exception. And what I'm willing to bet is leave a choice to the people. Like right now, there are age considerations on whether you can run for office. Right? It's like at the end of the day, a population will decide who they want to lead them regardless. Right? And that'll be an informed decision. Not made on a snap judgment, but made by masses, by people like you who have voted in some cycles, right? So you're not just going to be wowed by the 22-year-old. Like, it's not just going to be a sexy one-time interview. You got to see some substance. You got to see some body of work, some demonstrated advocacy. Like, you're going to do that due diligence yourself, right? Why not let everybody showcase themselves? Because what we've seen in our politics with these old motherfuckers is that age is not an indicator of wisdom. Age is not an indicator of vision. Age is not an indicator of how far you will take us or how successful that effort will be.
I was making a bit of an exaggeration between 90 and 22, but I like the hyperbole, so it's and I like how you took it.
No, because I had to live in that because I was like, no, but actually, if we think about it, shit, let's just all compete. Let it be merit-based. Because right now we have age requirements that say you have to be 35 for president and 25 for Congress.
But the life expectancy was also about 43. Yeah, we can discuss that another time.
So it's like it's let's modernize. Let's get to a point.
You brought up that American values. What are the American values? Freedom, America, raw, America. But American values, we talk about setting off fireworks. That's a representation of glorification of violence. It's talking about all the things that we don't necessarily want to bring home, right? But to me, the representation of American values, which might be awkwardly politicized, you're probably not going to, show up and bring this to the House, but I kind of wish we set off fireworks for Juneteenth.
Hey, man. Well, look.
For me, that's when I feel like we're actually representing the values that I served overseas for.
We're getting started.
Right. I'm thinking
we're getting started.
Exactly. Slavery, indentured servitude. Like, we got a lot of things here that we can improve upon.
Absolutely.
I would say the federal holiday is like a start, right? Like, we got the federal holiday under the Biden administration, which is like one of the few things Black people got under the Biden administration. That's a whole nother conversation. but like
several administrations that came before. But let's
but what I can say about Juneteenth is it's all right. So I have a quick little fucking like tomato to throw, and then I'm done. But
is it the day that we represented the values that we experience in our country that we value?
It's like the symbolism. I love the historical acknowledgement of the wrong that gives us Juneteenth as a federal holiday, but I also hate that it falls short of the work that we need to do of like the government showing that. So, for instance, we looked at the middle of the pandemic and anti-Asian sentiments were on a very visible rise, and we got a Stop Asian Hate bill like in no time. But we're looking at a historical legacy of slavery that relegated us to second-class citizenship, that had us hanging from trees, like that has us being incarcerated at a higher rate than we need to, that has us being killed by the state at a higher rate than we need to, that has the maternal health rates at a dismal fucking rate in comparison to the rest of the population, right? We got Juneteenth after 400 years of what we've been through, after a legacy of fighting for advancement through that. We got Juneteenth, so it's not like, come on, I got a Black Panther shirt on. I'm gonna talk my shit.
Yeah,
I'm feeling right now that you're the Huey P of the
It's like we got some cool shit in that. Because what it did was it provided a platform for education to happen. Because people said, "Okay, I got off work today. What is this June 19th thing? Right. And what is?" And so when there's a
Juneteenth is what the 4th of July was supposed to be.
If you think about it. Because at the end of the day, like, what is freedom? What is freedom if we're not free?
Exactly.
Juneteenth is the day that we actually adhere to the American values in which we celebrate on July 4th.
Everybody's not thinking like that. They're not thinking that.
Because you got to think about it though. Like I had somebody.
Why did I fight? Why do I have one leg? Why am I sitting here hobbling around, jumping around? It's because I wanted to participate in something bigger.
Yeah.
But that's what I wanted to come home to. We need more of you though saying that though. Right. And we need more, and when I say more of you, is like not only people
and
who
showing
can,
that reason,
who can lean into like the respect and honor that comes with
I
having
participated
served.
in that because I wanted to come back to what you were building.
It's that white man from middle of America who served saying that shit though. We need more of that. Like we need more of that reflected in the public sphere that is the America that you fought for.
No, it's actually the African Americans, the Native Americans that I served with that were saying that the entire fucking time.
That's what man.
I'm just the dude sitting in front of you repeating it.
Hey, man. And even that is a device of privilege, but I'm glad that you're using it to like bestow power to people who couldn't be in this place right now. Like it speaks to why we're going to be able to hang out after the podcast and shit. You know what I'm saying? But like, I want us to land our plane because I want to go party with everybody. But I really have felt enriched by being in this space with y'all. And being able to have this conversation. The beers made it great. The beers made that great call.
This was good, but I want some action items.
Yes,
I'm an action item person.
And I was just about to get to that because I was saying like the thing that I want to leave people with is like a tangible way that you can improve how I'm fighting this fight.
Right.
So I work with an organization called 51 for 51, which again we're fighting for using 51 votes in the Senate, simple majority, to make DC the 51st state. 51 votes has been used to nominate a Supreme Court justice, and we believe that if it can be used as a political device, it can be used as a mechanism to enfranchise the nearly 715,000 Americans who have watched democracy but not fully participated in it. And so my ask of people in the fight for DC statehood is, like I said, part of DC statehood's fight is demystifying it, letting people know that there's somebody like a Ty fighting for his rights in America in 2023.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people don't know that. They're not clued into it. And like many Americans are not civically engaged, politically minded outside of what is local or what is like a big splash nationally. And so this is one of those kind of niche issues. Like you got to really be kind of fixed into politics to care about.
Absolutely.
And so I encourage people, once I give them the awareness of it, to take that on to somebody else who you feel like has an expansive opportunity to pass it on to a population who take it and run with it. Colleges and universities. We love that. Yeah. Take it back to your home city. We have a website called 51for51.org.
Okay.
You go on there. There's a whole bunch of information about the history of it, about how it affects us compared to other states as far as budgets and then as far as rights, like all the things. I got a video on there that I did. There's a bunch of stuff. And then my personal Instagram, Ty Hobson Powell DC. You can just catch me like doing a bunch of DC statehood shit. Cause like I said, that's really me. Like I'll show you guys right here. Like, this is DC, like through and through. Like that's who I am, and I'm from DC. I'm for DC, and it's an honor to live in that space outside of being a motherfucker who's running for office. Because it
you're gonna run for office?
No.
I'm sorry. I got really excited all of a sudden.
I said outside of that framework. Like I said, to have that attachment to the people.
Third party hatch
in the issues,
right? So, Republican Democrat hatch.
Maybe. Look, maybe someday, right?
But applaud you. I mean, as a young man, as a young Black man that's fighting for something this strong and showing the representation. I mean, like that's rare. So I applaud you. And I'll do whatever I can. I mean, like I said, I need some action items to take back. I do a lot of things in our city. Like, what can we do to uplift that?
Beyond that, a competent, capable, charismatic, powerful, empowering,
inspiring.
Man, well, I appreciate you guys. Tate, you got any closing remarks for us, man?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. It's Chocolate City, baby. I'm Tate Chamberlain. This is the Hatch Podcast with Tammy, Corbett, and Ty. Thank you so much.
This
was
is so
fun.
amazing. I'm so excited for Hatch.
Yeah.
This is just amazing. Thank you, Tate.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Thank you.
So here we are at the end. And what Ty Hobson Powell leaves us with is simple, but powerful. Washington, D.C. is more than monuments. It's a community. It's Chocolate City. It's people who work, who love, who raise families, who deserve to be seen. And here's the thing. It doesn't take a constitutional rewrite. It doesn't take a miracle. Just 51 votes in the Senate. That's the call. 51 for 51. 51 votes to make D.C. the 51st state. To turn hundreds of thousands of residents from spectators into participants in their own democracy. This is Dispatch from the Heartland. I'm your host, Tate Chamberlain. Thanks to Ty Hobson Powell, Corbett Landis, and Tammy Buckner. And to you for listening. Music for Dispatch from the Heartland is by Gangsta Grass, an electrifying blend of bluegrass and hip-hop that captures the spirit of the Heartland. Stay tuned. Later in this series, we'll delve deeper into Gangsta Grass's story and their unique sound in our full episode. Don't miss it.
Son, rebel no pauses, taking out your forces with a switchblade and a rusty gun. Doing this forever, you've just begun. Don't start none, it won't be none.
It seems now more than ever that we have found ourselves on the cusp of monumental worldwide change. Whether we consider the environment, politics, infrastructure, health, economics, or inequities across a broad swath of social constructs, the consensus is clear and urgent. All is not as it should be. The United Nations, a consortium of 193 member states from around the globe, agrees. In 2015, the UN unanimously adopted the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs. These goals call for urgent action and global partnership to secure peace and prosperity for people and the planet, now and into the future.
In alignment with the SDGs, Hatch, a curated network of artists, activists, and entrepreneurs working together to accelerate positive global change, has partnered with I Am Interchange to fuse adventure journalism with experiential design labs to develop innovative solutions to complex global challenges. Hey everybody, thanks for listening to the podcast. If you enjoy it, please subscribe or leave us a rating. This episode was produced by Yara Craner, Susan Karstensen, and me, Tate Chamberlain. A shout out to our media and production team, Jessica Byerly, Darko Sevilla, Jacob Desch, Sean Mackinson, Amin Yarsu, and Zane Giordano. With so much gratitude to the Hatch supporters, Steelcase, the Kauffman Foundation, the Gwydion Fund, Envision Equality, the Hatch Volunteers, Board of Directors, Hatch Guardians, and the community who help make this work and mission possible. To learn more about Hatch, visit hatchexperience.org. Building community could not happen without food. And with that, I'd like to thank Whistle Pig Korean, Red Tractor Pizza, and Zocalo Coffee House. Do you have an issue that's riddled by gridlock in your community? Shoot me an email at tate@iaminterchange.org. That's tate@iaminterchange.org. Remember, share airtime and don't ruin dinner.